the thing that really resonated with others, that's why I get projects, is because your willingness to add value to people. I think that would be my biggest, for example, superpower. I think it's the willingness to add value to people. It's not just you.
Yo everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and welcome to another episode of the Design Live Show. In episode 106 of TDLS, I got a chance to sit down with Dustin Carbonera. He is a Filipino branding and graphic designer and design history enthusiast. He also founded the ISO Design PH, a design platform that aims to tell and curate Philippine graphic design for the world to see. Additionally, Dustin is a firm believer that great design is founded in modesty, empathy, and integrity. In this episode, we talk about his amazing grown-up stories. We also talk about some interesting graphic design history, what is CDAP or CDAP and why it exists, and some exciting things ahead for graphic designers in the Philippines, and why adding more value to people would be really important for you as a design expert, and much more. So hopefully you'll enjoy this episode as much as I do. So it's been long overdue, and hopefully this would add value to whatever you are doing right now, your passion project, right, and your business or your brand if you're building a brand. So hopefully this would really help you a ton, and if you haven't already, and if you find this interesting, please do let me know. Email me and DM me. I always respond to any DMs. All right. So you could also follow the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. All right. So I don't want to waste your time anymore. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. You're listening to the Design Life Show, a podcast that's helping everyone grow to live a meaningful and creative life. It's me, Jay Christ, a designer from the Philippines, best known for being an advocate of essentialism and optimism. I'm sitting down with awesome people to talk about their journey, their process, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Me again, Jay Christ, and live show. I'm super excited to have another great podcast here, right, in TDLS. So actually, we're recording it around 9 p.m. Philippine time. So, and I'm super excited to learn more about the processes of my guests right now, and then practical experiences that we could share to anyone who are listening in the podcast or following the podcast, especially for creatives out there, designers, and aspiring entrepreneurs there who want to level up with in terms to their career path or business or passion project that you are doing right now. So yeah, without further ado, Dustin, man, thank you so much for dropping by on the podcast. How are you doing, man?
Hey man, thank you for inviting me, for even inviting me at all. I've I've seen your work before. I've
My
actually seen
pleasure,
your
man.
work. I've seen your podcast because one of my friends or some of my friends have actually guested here. So I'm aware of your
Kevin
podcast.
Santos has been on the
Yes.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen that you've got a lot of following and also some international, you know, guests so that you
Yeah,
could
we're
bring more
global.
value to people. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's all my pleasure, ma. It's all on me. And I'm super grateful to have you on the podcast. So just to give some context, before we try to dig deeper on our topics right now here on our podcast episode, can you give a little background on how you get started with in terms to your design career right now, and for anyone who haven't heard Dustin, who is Dustin?
Well, a lot of people have not heard of me, that's for sure. Um, well, as a starter, I started as so I'll go way back. So when I was in college,
Mhm.
um, I took up journalism, but what happened was one day, this I was in third year college, and Team Manila Design Studio, they came at our school. So they discussed about graphic design, and I did not know that there is a career like that. So I was like, oh, okay. So you can actually have a career designing. And at that time, I was learning Photoshop, not really designing the technicals of it,
Uh-huh.
but just tinkering with design, some creating some edits for your crush or something like that. So that got me started in Photoshop. So when I saw Team Manila, I was like, oh, so there's a career like that. So you can safely say that it was because of Team Manila that I dreamt of being a designer, that you can actually make a career out of that. But of course, it wasn't really easy for me because, for one, I was a journalism student. It was on my third year, and back then there weren't many resources about design. I think the closest that you can have would be, say, DeviantArt or Multiply. So for some of
Uh-huh.
your listeners, if they don't know Multiply, they're very young. They're very young. So
Ito
there.
kasabayan nito yung MySpace, right? Or
Yeah.
yes, Friendster.
MySpace, Friendster. Yes, like, testimonials and all that. So
Yeah, we're
yeah.
so old, dude. Oh
Uh
man.
don't let them know. No, I mean, yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, there weren't many resources. If you go to the library, there aren't much design books, or I guess I wasn't really that interested yet in the technicals of it. But so it took me. So after graduation, so fast forward to graduation, I didn't really get a design job. Although I really wanted to have a design job, I didn't get one. It took me 2 years to actually land a real graphic design job, and that really started
Mhm.
my career when it comes to, like, I was in business communications in a
Interesting. Mhm.
BPO. Yeah, BPO here in the Philippines. So, business communications as a designer. So that got me started in really, having that courage to say that I am a legitimate graphic designer. But my background really is, you know, YouTube University. So there.
Yeah, I got you. And I think I just want to learn more when you're, when you're just young and when you're growing up as a, as a kid, probably,
Hmm.
I don't know, an average kid or here in the Philippines,
Yeah, pretty
what is
much.
like growing up? Ano ba yung parang experience mo growing up in the Philippines?
Well, I I don't think that I have something that's extraordinary. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
a regular kid.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do remember is this, that when I was younger, I think I had inclinations of being a designer because
Mm-hmm.
in my high school, when I was in high school, what I really like creating logos. So in my last year with senior year, I created one logo per classmate. That's my gift to them.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So little did I know that after years that I'd realize that, hey, I really wanted to create logos, and that is my bread and butter today, which is branding, logos.
Uh-huh.
I really like creating logos because for me, imagine creating something that would try to explain the whole context of say a company or an organization or an individual. So that's how big logos are for me. So there.
I got you. And actually, I find your style, it's really awesome to really find, to really uh find something that you've created. And one of the things that seen is the Cavite Armalite,
Ah, yeah.
right? Inspired
Yeah,
font,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's where I connected you. So I've connected with you. Hey, oh, Dustin is from Cavite pala, right? So, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah.
for more collaborators, for more awesome people to be on the podcast. Why not? I should, connect with him. And so I message you, right? And then
Yeah.
I've seen this one, and it's really, it's really parang bumabalik talaga yung pagkabata mo, eh, di ba? Pag
Mm.
nakikita mo yung ganitong logo, and And you've mentioned on our before we record the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you've been parang very interested with graphic design history, right? So
Yeah.
kailan ba to nag-start? How did you start with yung interest mo with graphic design history?
Ah, well, for one, having a journalism background, I one of the things that I like is digging up stories. So automatically one of that is history. So I really like history, Philippine history. And then it's like when I became a designer, I was trying to look for some related literature about our design history in the Philippines, and I found very scarce. I think there
Mhm.
was an attempt before. I forgot her name, but there's this one designer who migrated already to Europe. I think in Spain. I forgot her name, but she tried to create like a book or a booklet about Philippine graphic design history. But because even in her words, she said that the
Mhm.
references are so scarce that you have to really try to get context from things. But in reality, we have a rich history. It's just that it's not documented, at least not formally documented. And that's one of my dreams for Philippine
Mhm.
graphic design, which is to document. And I think with all the movements that are having right now, for example, so I started ISO design, which is trying to document and tell Philippine graphic design stories. That's one. Um,
Uh-huh.
and there are so many other movements happening right now. For example, Type 63 focusing on type. Um,
Mhm.
Another one is Joey Alviar of Team Manila. He also has an extensive list of things when it comes to Philippine graphic design history. We still have some graphic designers who are alive today who were back then 1970s. We had so great of a time when it comes to graphic design. We have Ige Ramos, we have Freika Bading, we have Bobo
Yes,
Yonzon.
or
Those
pray.
people, yeah, we those people actually saw, if I could say, the golden time of graphic design in the
Mhm.
Philippines, 1970s, 1980s, when their references were like magazines or books from the US. And because the references were so scarce, only limited people were practicing the craft. So I guess that's why design back then was so, structured, so to speak. So there.
Gotcha, gotcha. And with in terms to let's say we with interest to the history, is
Hmm.
there marami bang technical parts ba to really make this happen right now? Especially there's a lot of movement, right? There's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
great stuff happening in the Philippines, and I'm also one of the excited
Hmm.
individuals to really make that happen. What's your perspective about that? What's the little thing that we miss out to really make these things happen?
I think, well, for one, I think we're not really, at
Mm-hmm.
least mindfully, like, hey, we really need to sit down and list all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of us have scattered pieces. Like you have a
Yeah.
piece of history with your podcast. So that's one. We could really say that, hey, you're part of design history in the Philippines because you're actually doing something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like everyone has a piece of the puzzle, but no one has really made an effort to really,
Mm-hmm.
well, again, there's one. It's just that she had other priorities right now, but
Uh-huh.
um she, not yet of a, like, hey, can I have a piece of that so that we can try to piece it all together. But the good thing about graphic design is it's evolving, and I don't think that the stories would stop. We would always have some great vibrant graphic design stories that we could tell. So it's like a book that will never end. But my goal is at least trying to put the pieces together And um, one of my goals is to create a book. And yeah, there under ISO Design and Communication Designers Association of the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. And I think like what you mentioned, just I just want to highlight with when it comes to you know uh, putting all these pieces, right,
Mm-hmm.
shattered pieces of the design history, right, and it's really probably malaking ano siya trabaho talaga, it's
Yeah,
a
it is.
really it's really it's really a tremendous it should have a tremendous amount of work now we need to put in to really make sure na we put the right pieces in and at the right place, right?
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
uh, and for and for everyone who want to contribute, right? And probably it's a mindset as well. We need to change the narrative, like what Dustin said. We need to change the narrative of being a lone wolf, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
being I just want to make a living, right? So probably we could go together, collaborate in some way or another. And uh, and actually I realized when I'm talking with you, Dustin, that somehow it somehow really connects with how I do my works and
Mm-hmm.
my life works. I just wanna connect the dots as much as I can, and at the same time contribute those practical insights that I get from awesome designers, entrepreneurs that I've talked to. And then hopefully someone would uh bag that or add
Mm-hmm.
under packet somehow in their journey as well and experiences. And yeah, and it's really, I'm empathizing with you as well. I'm
Yeah.
really you
Yeah.
know I'm really connecting with you on that. And speaking of CDAP, right? So, just to shift gear a little bit with CDAP, can you share a little bit about that for anyone who haven't heard that? And what is CDAP?
Oh,
CDAP to be exact. Mm-hmm.
well, CDAP is Communication Designers Association of the
Uh-huh.
Philippines, and it's pretty young. I think it was started 2017. Founding members are from Team Manila, Sir Joey, who is the current president right now. I
Mm-hmm.
think Angela from Adobo Magazine. Of course, everyone in the design community knows Dan, Sir AJ. So there. But it's a pretty young what do you call this, group organization, but the goals are really
Mm-hmm.
high, because if we really want to make some changes here in our local design history, it's not just them, it's just that someone had to start the process.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So who better start the process than the ones who actually went into some battles when it comes to graphic design here in the Philippines. And it's just that I'm trying to be uh, a contributor, and it shouldn't stop at us, right? So
Uh-huh.
I so it's just that it's like waves, right? So waves, first wave, second wave, and all. Oh, no, no, let's not use that. Let us not use that. No, what do you call this? Analogy. So try nothing edit, Um, it's like, for example, passing the torch, because there will always be someone who needs to get the torch so that things can get going. So
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
so there, I'm really excited for CDAP, because I really think that we'll be cooking up some exciting things for the design community. But it's,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's going to take so much effort, but not just from us, but the whole design community. Because if we
Yeah,
really
I
want
think,
to make
yeah.
happen, things
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah, the biggest question here is, are you ready of the work that it demands, right? So I think it demands a lot of work, a ton of work, right? And especially a shift with in terms to mindset.
Yeah.
especially here in the Philippines, right? So the culture, we're very traditional. Ako, I'm from the Cavite. I grew up in Silang, so very traditional. More on agriculture area, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's a lot of things that should be done first before we probably make that happen. And I'm glad that it's happening right now, and
Mm-hmm.
gradually, right? I think that's a great that's a great thing as well. And yeah, Dustin, thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanna uh, sh- uh, uh, what you call this, learn more on how you created Kabiti Armalite inspired
Oh,
font.
okay.
So this is one thing that I'm really interested in terms to how you did your research, right? And how did you put all these pieces and then create an amazing piece of font, that you put out there. Well, can you share a little bit about this project,
Oh.
especially for Caviteño? So probably makaka-relate sila. Yan.
Shout out to the
Shout out.
Caviteños.
What's up, Souths?
Yeah. Well, the thing about that is it's just a small, really it's an exercise for me because Cavite Arma type is my first attempt into actually creating something of a type. So uh it's not really an original thing from me. If
Mm-hmm.
well, if you're Caviteño, you would actually know because you've seen these things before. It's pretty prevalent here in Cavite to see that Cavite Armalite, and no one knows the history of it, or at least to the extent of the digging that I've tried making. No one knows, but it's just ingrained in our subliminal. If you're Caviteño, you actually know that
Yeah.
what do you call this, that Cavite Arma type. So the process is actually boring, much like in everything. Um, because foundational things are boring, but you have to do it because these are the things that work. So when I was doing the sketches every day, I felt like, will
Mm-hmm.
this even make sense? But I also knew that this font wouldn't be as usable, but it was more of a display font, an abstract experimental font that what I did was uh created words, at least the names of the places here in Cavite, like Imus, Dasma, Silang, Tagaytay.
Mm-hmm.
So those things, not just Cavite itself, but the places also here in Cavite. So it's one way showing my love for the South, right? So there.
Yeah. Yes. South United, right?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
unite. Yeah, that's really cool. And actually, I don't know as well kung ano yung mako-contribute ko dito sa history ng uh, Cavite Armalite font. Kasi parang, like what you've said, growing up, I've seen this a lot sa
Right.
mga jeepney, sa tricycle, right? And I didn't put time or, put my energy to really dig deeper on how
Mhm.
how it started. And actually, that's one thing that we should learn from you as well, because as a journalist, right, or as a designer, or for anyone who just getting started, right, so probably you should put some time to dig deeper a little bit
Mm.
on your artwork or on the design
Yeah.
that you are doing, right? So probably put a little more love for
Mhm.
and then that's one thing, right? Yung process, yung research, right? So, and it's another story. And one thing that I've learned from how you do it is to make sure that hindi mo siya nakakalimutan dun sa
Yeah.
process mo, right?
Mhm.
And that's usually parang nagiging problems with in terms sa mga aspiring designers or creatives out there. They forgot to add a research to their designs, to their
Yeah.
logo. And in some and how I put it, based on your perspective, Dustin, is when you do this, right, and when you add research, probably it would add value as well on your creative output, right? And it would, probably it would contribute a lot in
Yeah.
on how you see or how you build an amazing work, right? And
Yeah.
that's amazing, man. So hopefully I give justice on that. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, to add to that, research is like,
Uh-huh.
it's more of the bulk of the work that needs to be done
Uh-huh.
when you try, not just in fonts, right? But you know this,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in design work, research is the biggest part of things, because before you even start, say, opening up your programs, the first thing that you
Uh-huh.
really need to do is understand the creative brief, because um well I've been into situations where I tried opening up my programs and just designing and not understanding the creative brief at all. So what happens is we end up wasting um our time, like my time and then my client's time. So that's the problem. So I've learned that
Uh-huh.
research would really be the bulk of the work. Understanding context, what if this thing is like, for example, oh, so you learned that this item is this, but the question is, have you checked multiple sources? It's 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 sort of should be common, but it's not. For example,
Uh-huh.
that's the reason why we share a lot of things in social media without even verifying it with other sources. So in design, that's the same thing. You should be researching, like, are these is this even verified by three, or at least three or four sources? That's how you do
Uh-huh.
better
Mm-hmm.
in design research.
Gotcha. So, as you mentioned, Dustin, just to dig deeper on design research, what's your best practical advice for, additionally for those you've mentioned already? So, what's your process in terms to design research for anyone who out there who haven't heard this term before? Because, as a designer, I just want to create cool things, right? I just want to design beautiful things, right? Why should
Yeah.
I do research, right? Why should I do these
Oh,
processes?
yeah.
Uh, what's your perspective about that?
Well, if you just want to create nice things, I think that's
Mm.
on the realm of art. As I've said
Uh-huh.
in one of my classes, art makes you feel, but design makes you understand. Because for one,
100%.
art is more of a, hey, for example, uh, we're looking at the same painting, but you get something else, I get something else. And that's the role of art.
Mm-hmm.
It should be beautiful and it should make you feel. But when it's design, if we are looking at the same poster, like a communicative poster, you got something else, I got something else, then that design fails, because we should be getting the same
Interesting.
message. We should be getting the same message. So for
Mm-hmm.
one, um, you need to do your research, because you need to know how you would communicate. Because graphic design, as mentioned by Massimo Vignelli, the great Italian designer, um, you, design is about communicate. Graphic design is about communication. So if we don't communicate, we fail in designing. It's not just making things look nice. Function, which is to communicate, should come first. Then the form will follow. So there.
Gotcha. That's super practical and super powerful for anyone who just getting started, especially for graphic designers out there who are listening. So doesn't just to shift a little bit or
Okay.
shift gear a little bit. When we when you are just going back to Cavite Armalite font
Mm-hmm.
or type, w- when when you're creating this one, did you find some sources within Cavite, or talagang wala talaga, or how do you start in some way, or what's your process to really start
Ah, okay.
from scratch to your end result?
Well, for one, wala talaga masyado. There wasn't really that much of a literature when it comes to, hey, what's the history of this?
Mm-hmm.
When you do a quick search, it's just that it's there. So,
Uh-huh.
for one, wala ka ng related literature about it. So, what do you do then? Then, the next sensible thing that you can do is, okay, so if there's no history for it, what could other parts of Cavite history that you can infuse in this? So how can you make it personal? How can you make this like, hey, if I'm from
Mm-hmm.
Cavite, how can I connect from it? So the next thing is you personalize it. So that's what I did for
Ah,
for
gotcha.
Cavite. So it's blatantly Cavite, and then other experiments of it would be other places here in Cavite. Again, like Imus or Silang. So if
Yeah.
you check my
Kawit.
work, and
Uh-huh.
andun sila. So they are there. So
Yeah.
there. But along the research is you'd also find some crazy things, or like, for example, stories like, um of course, the famed Nardong Putik is Caviteño, right? So
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
there other history on the Katipunan movement here. So you get to learn a lot of things. But then again, you know this, but how will this connect to the end goal? So you learn, but you also filter what you need to include in the final product.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super cool and super useful as well.
Yeah, I hope it
And
was.
yeah, you are checking it out. I'm checking it out. So there is Imus, Kawit, Dasma,
I have not
Tansa,
finished it, so
Naik,
I'm so sorry.
Silang, right? So actually I'm very familiar with Cavite only, right? So
Yeah.
I think they I don't know who made this, probably the creator of this, want to unite all these, all these towns or cities, right? Into one form.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
why probably. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I really think, so my
Mm-hmm.
hunch. So
Uh-huh.
this is just a theory from me. So after
Yeah.
some so because Cavite is known for like the gangsters, right? So
Ah.
there's
Mm-hmm.
even a movie about, like, I think it was Ramon Revilla Sr. and then Fernando Po Jr. Like, akin ng tondo, iyo ang Cavite, or something to that. I forgot the
Ah.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Mm-hmm.
Cavite is known for like the gangsters of that age. So perhaps I don't think that the Armalite was old enough to be in the Katipunan. So that's
Uh-huh.
already an X in your history book, right? So the next closest would be the time of the gangsters. So I think that would be
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
related to why we have the Armalite and the Cavite, because we're known for those things. So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So I think we should, really dig deeper on this. For
yeah.
anyone who are listening, right? So, we could
We're not
probably.
advocating guns, right? We're not.
We're not. So we're uniting the design designers here,
Yeah.
creatives here, right? So you could reach out to Dustin if you have any insights there. Just don't spam Dustin, right? So this is a busy guy here, right? So
Yeah, if they have
so
some
yeah,
stories, right? So they can share.
yeah, for
Yeah, like
sure,
that.
yeah. So yeah, Dustin, we on creating, right? So we mentioned design research, right? So before
Mm-hmm.
we try to open our software or tools, and then try to create some cool stuff that we want to create. What's your biggest struggles when it comes to following that process, or following that that trend, right?
Mm.
So and how you overcome it, right? So you've mentioned, I guess we've already said that it's really a ton of work, right? So
Yeah.
additionally, what's probably your personal experiences, what's your biggest struggle, and how do you overcome it?
Struggle is, hey, real talk. A lot of times I think I am, a lot of times I am insecure that, hey, can I actually do this? But
Mhm.
um, it also hits me. Like, for me, I believe that this was a gift. Like, this is a gift from God. Like, this is only the reason why I can design is because only of the grace of God, and it's in my website. there you can see it that I can design because of the grace of God alone. So for one, I I always go back to the idea that if I am created to become a designer, then that's my role. So I just stick to that role, that not really thinking much of the form, but I'm thinking of how can I effectively solve this person or this client's problem. So it's more of I take on this challenge because I want to solve their problem, not because I want to create something that's nice, but I'm more on the how can I solve their problem. So there when I get back to that point, it gives me comfort that hey, I've been doing this for a long time, and um people actually believe in what I can deliver. So there,
Mhm.
they wouldn't get me if they don't believe in me, right? So that's the first
Yeah.
thing. That's the first thing
Gotcha.
that
Mhm.
that's the first thing why I actually have this project right now. It's because they believe in me first. So if they believe in me, then I should solve their problem. So there, that keeps me back on track. And I also look at not just at past experiences, but also the excitement of the end product. So I'm really excited
Mhm.
of hey, this is our goal. So how can we meet this goal? How can we or even go beyond the goal? So I'm really happy when the client comes back and say that hey, we're oh, so can I share a story about that?
Yes, please go.
So I'm designing for I don't know
Uh-huh.
if I could say this, but well, I'm designing for some MSMEs, right? So for some
Mhm.
MSMEs, and they are under a program of the government. So what I did, what our role was to create better packaging for them. So for me, it's okay. So it's labels of their products. So
Mhm.
it's not, although it's not really that, it isn't easy, right? It's not, no design work is easy, but it's just that for me it was work. So I just had to deliver. So when I presented the studies to this particular client, to this MSME, um when they saw the design, they were really, I mean, because it was a video call, they saw the design and they were really happy. So I was like, wow, you could really change someone's mood because of good
Yeah.
design.
Mhm.
And then what they said to me was this, like, sir, thank you so much for designing this really nicely. Um, I wouldn't be shy in selling our products anymore with this kind of labels. So it's like, oh wow, that's the level of impact of design for these people. For example, so so of course I have a copy of their products. I just had to redesign it. But
Uh-huh.
when they saw the designs, they already approved the look on the spot, and they said that yun nga, they wouldn't be shy in selling these products uh, now that it's designed like this. So my realization is this: people actually know what good design is. It's just that
Uh-huh.
they don't know how to do it, but they know.
Mm. Yeah.
They know what really looks nice. But on their end, they just don't know how to do it. So it's, as designers, our role is to really help them get to that point where then, again, taking from their word, they will not be shy in showing their products to others. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, okay, this is really inspiring, and I will, I will really carry it for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think in other words, like you've mentioned, I think we're not selling how how a design will look like, but we're selling how would resonate with people who use it, with people who
Yeah,
sell it as well, right? Or your clients. And that's that's something that that's pretty much sum up what
yeah,
really a good design is. And
yeah,
right there, meat and potatoes from Dustin. So make sure you noting it, noting it up. So I'm noting right now. So I'm really learning some practical insights
I
here.
mean,
So mhm.
yeah, because I tell other designers who ask me this. It's like, how do I design for this and that? Because
Uh-huh.
sometimes their client is this. So when that happens, I ask my client, wait, um, will your clients buy this? Because at the end of the day, you are my client, but you have your own clients. We're designing it not just for you, but for your clients. So will your
Gotcha.
audience like it? Even if your taste doesn't match with their taste, but at the end of the day, they are the ones who's going to buy your product, and we have to serve them, not our own personal taste, but their taste. So there.
Yes, 100%. And it's I know it's hard, right? So it's hard, but I think it's really worth it if you find a way to really change the way how you look at on your how you look at things when it comes to your design process,
Yeah.
like what Dustin said, right? Honestly, when I'm just getting started, it's parang wala to sa list ko yun of priority, no?
Mhm.
So, and I just wanna make cool stuff, design
Yeah.
good design, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the day, hindi natin nabebenta or hindi natin nasisell yung value nun kasi we don't have that right mindset and then right
Yeah.
process. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
because we
think
were too
that's
young.
it.
We
Yeah, we're
didn't
too
know.
young, right? We didn't know, so that's okay, right? So I think you would learn it along the way, like what Dustin,
Yeah, but even at
like
this
what we
point,
mentioned. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but even at this point, we're still learning, right? And that's the beauty of our
Mm-hmm.
field, is because it challenges you to actually learn every day, and new projects have different challenges, and that is what excites me always.
Yes, 100%. So yeah, Dustin, just a little, another questions from me here. So, if anyone who wants to, wants to start their career and at the same time put a little touch of history, what you would recommend? What's the best practical advice that you could, that you could give to them?
Well, I think hitting two birds is really
Mm-hmm.
big enough for a person. I think if you're just starting, just solve people's problems. If you're a designer, right? So
Uh-huh.
so I think that's the main focus, is to, because designing is problem solving. So that should be the main focus, that you should be doing, and really have this heart for the client. I think empathy goes a long way, because when you feel the client's problems, what happens is you tend to understand it on their level. Now you also want to do the best for them, because you're also a stakeholder. When you're a designer, you're a stakeholder in the situation,
Mm, yeah.
right away. So there, you're part of the solution now. So I think that should be one of the things that we should be thinking about when it comes to, even when you're starting, think about how what are the things that you can contribute or add value to your clients. that's
Yes,
that's for me, that's the ultimate.
100%. Yeah, and it's still still an uphill battle even for those professionals, right?
Yeah,
It's it's
I
a
don't think that
trial and
I've
error, right?
scratched a lot already. I mean at this point,
Yeah,
last
I'm
year,
empathizing with you.
2020
Hmm.
2020
Uh-huh.
was my 10th year, in
Wow. Hmm.
like in design. But I don't think that I've barely scratched anything at all. But again, for me, that's the beauty of what we're doing, is it's constantly challenging us when it comes to how do we deliver this, how do we solve this. So there.
Yes. There you go. So I think that's it, right? So
Oh
there's a
wow.
lot of things out there on the things that you mentioned, right? So we've kind of mentioned the exciting things ahead for graphic
Mhm.
design in the Philippines, right? And
Yes.
I wanna get some insights from you as well about this. What's your vision, or what are the things that you could probably share for anyone who are listening right now about the graphic design in the Philippines?
Okay. For one, um, for me, the development of type designers. That's one. With emerging movements like Tipong Filipino, Type 63, Filipino
Mm,
type. Um, that's a good start already when it comes to like a resurgence right now. There are so many illustrators, there are so many brand people, design studios popping from everywhere. And what excites me is this, that we are finding designers, great designers, not just in Metro Manila, because there are
wow.
other great designers out there. For example, if you go to Cebu, Happy Garahe,
Yeah.
si Micah Arnado. When you go to Mindanao, you can find Uncurated Studio, Carl Aguro. Man, there are so many great designers. Um, not it's not just saturated here in Metro Manila, but uh, it's everywhere, and that was a discovery for me
Mm,
in doing ISO design, that there are so many designers, not just in Manila. And my vision is to elevate also the design taste of others, because even if, say, I've mentioned some great names of designers from other parts of the Philippines, but there is a lot more that needs to be done. So much more.
yes, 100%. And I'm having goosebumps right now because mentioning those exciting things, right? And uh although it's a lot of hard work, but parang tayo na yung kinabukasan, we're the future, right? The future is now.
Yeah.
So creative, right? Creativity,
Uh,
Pinoy, we're all over the Philippines at the same time. Kinikilala tayo sa locally, not only locally but abroad as well. So
yeah.
that's super exciting, and I want to see more on unveiled that
Mm-mm.
curtain,
Yeah.
pick, at least pick a little bit
Mhm.
kung ano
Mhm.
yung nandun, di ba? So so hopefully for anyone who just getting started there, for or anyone who are already doing their part, contributing on our on our history, on our future as a designer or creative, Filipino creative. So just keep at it, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
let's go on, right? Just what's your what's your message to them, Dustin? Speaking of that.
Hey man, my message is this: like, they should be, be excited for the things that they should be doing, because it's already, whatever that they do, it's already part of a design history. It's a matter of mindfulness. By mixing mindfulness in the process, not just making things that are beautiful, but also things that are are really, I think, culturally involved, so to speak. So those things, I'm really excited for the things that I will still be seeing. For example, to give another example, Aaron Amar with the types Cubao and Quiapo. So those things are landmarks. Like, we already know these things subliminally, but it's just that it was Aaron who made it happen through digital ways, that
Yeah.
now
Mhm.
it's easier for us to create like digital signages because of Aaron. But it's already there. It's like what I did for Cavite Arma type. It's already there. It's just that it was digitized so that other people can see. But it's already
Yes.
ingrained in
Mhm.
our subliminal.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's super exciting. Thank you for so much for sharing that, Dustin. And before we, uh, wrap up this podcast session. So, do you have any like book recommendation for graphic designers or
Oh wow.
professionals or anyone who just getting started as well or want to boost their career in terms of graphic design? What's your books recommendations if you have
Book
one?
rec.
Could you?
I have
Yeah.
I have
Mhm.
lots of book recommendations. Let me
I
check.
have all day. Just kidding.
Well, you don't. Well, the podcast is limited to, I don't know. So for one, I have because I'm a brand designer, I'm a logo designer. I would
Mhm.
start with Logo Design Love by
Gotcha.
David Airy. So David Airy is an Irish designer. So he created this book. He was also the inspiration behind ISO design because he was curating design
Mm,
in his place. So I was like, hey, no one's doing it for us. So that's what got me thinking about ISO design. So logo design love. Another book is Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. I think it was also mentioned. It's being mentioned constantly at Chris Doe's podcast. The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. It's so good. I read it twice because it was so good.
wow.
Uh,
Gotcha.
Another book would be I'm reading this book right now called Good Services because it's not just um because design again is about services, right? So Good Services is a book that tackles what constitute of what's a good service. So it makes you think not just about, hey, I'm doing some nice things, nice looking things, but am I actually hitting the service that they need? So
Mhm.
sometimes we don't really need to delve just on, hey, I need to design, I need to just read design books. No, you have to widen your search. You have to go beyond. Sometimes the gems of learnings would not just come from design books, it's from other books. So they're good services. And if you go
Gotcha.
beyond, what other books, the rules of work, I have that one from Templar. It discusses about ethics of a of a an employee. Sometimes I think myself as an employee because I'm employed by someone else. So there, it's because as a designer you also have to think about your values. So what are your values? So you have to think about it.
Gotcha. That's it, right? So logo
Oh
design,
wow.
love,
Yeah.
win without pitching, and good services, right? And then
Yes.
the rules of work. So for
Yes.
anyone who who haven't taking notes, so you could check that out on our show notes below. I will put all those amazing
We
recommendation
don't get
from
commissions, right? We don't
Dustin.
get commissions
Yeah,
for
we don't have that.
here's my promo code for this book. No, kidding. We don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a service here. So there
Yeah.
you go. So yeah, Dustin, thank you so much for sharing that. Before we wrap up this all, last question. So
Mm-hmm.
in eye view, in general, so imagining that you're flying high, seeing this great designs, great communities, great design communities, right, or designer. So what's your best practical advice for them?
Wait, what? Sorry. So how does that work? Like, if I'm seeing from a bird's eye view, so what would be my
Yeah, what's your best practical advice for them to to really aspire their to really push their passion, push further when it comes to their skills, or start their passion project, anything, you know that could really that could really uh make them work, I don't know what I'm saying now kung ano pero parang kasi I always I always ask my guests
guess?
kung ano yung best practical advice nila, kung ano
Oh,
yung kung lalo na dun sa mga Filipino creatives na who want to follow their passion and purpose, so parang ganon.
oh.
So does it make sense?
Okay, okay, okay,
Ayan, cool.
okay, okay. I
So yeah,
got it.
ulitin ko yung question. So
Got it. Okay.
uh yeah, before we wrap up this podcast episode, Dustin, what's your best practical advice in bird's eye view, right?
Okay.
For those Filipino creatives who who really want to follow their passion and pursue their purpose.
Oh, okay. So I've said that. I think I've said this earlier, but you know what? Your question is really hard. That it's that hard. I mean, it's easy to listen to, but it's hard to answer. But I if I could, in years of doing design, because well, my experience is 6 years in 6 years in corporate, 4 years. Oh no, this is my fifth year. Fifth year when it comes to freelance or solopreneur. So I don't know which works better. So um, my the thing that really resonated with others. That's why I get projects is because your willingness to add value to people. I think that would be my biggest, for example, superpower. I think it's the willingness to add value to people. It's not just you. The reason why you're solving another person's problem through design is because they have some problem. So if you think of a project thinking that, hey, how can I add value to what you're doing? Everyone wants to hear that. That, hey, this person wants to help me, wants to add value. And if you have that posture every single time, like, hey, so how can I help you? How can I help you achieve your goal? That has worked for me every single time. Because when I say that I want to add value to you, I'm also putting a stake into the situation, because I'm also part of the solving team, right? So if it doesn't work, I also have a part why it did not work. It's not everything, but you have a part
Mm-hmm.
in it. It's like putting yourself in the client's shoes, that they have a problem. I'm now part of solving it. So that for me is, if you want to succeed, think about how do you add value to others. So that's my answer.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much, Dustin, for that. And I
No,
think
no,
that's
no.
super
Thank
powerful.
you.
Thank you so much, man. And for those who are, listening right now, so hopefully they're still listening. So we're almost one
Well, I
hour
hope.
talking here. So what's your, where they could find you? What's the best link if they want to reach out with you, if they want to learn more about your works, your great works that you are putting out there. What's the links that that we could add on our show notes below as well?
Oh no, I hope they don't. I hope they don't find me. No, kidding. I think the best place that you should be looking at would be not me. I would rather point them to ISO Design, because um, ISO Design hosts a lot of designers, a lot of other great designers as well. And I want them to see the diversity of and creativity of the Filipino designer. So I'd rather point them to ISO Design. So if you could check in Facebook, ISO Design PH. If you could go
Mm-hmm.
to Instagram, it's at isodesign.ph. So there. I guess you'd also share that in the show notes. Like, I'd rather point them to ISO Design. But um if they really wanna see, it's dustincarbonera.com. Just plain and simple dustincarbonera.com.
Gotcha. There you go. DustinCarbonera.com. So for anyone who are listening right now, so ISO Design PH, right? And
Yep.
DustinCarbonera.com. So I'll put that on our show notes below. So
Yeah.
all the things that or rather a summary of the things that we talk about in this amazing podcast episode. So you could check that out on our show notes below. So you could follow the podcast as well on any of your favorite podcasting app. Actually, major podcasting app like
Oh
Apple
wow.
Podcasts, iTunes, right? It's available now as well on Amazon Music, man, via web app or Audible. So you could just search the Design Lab Show and you could check all the great episodes including this episode with Dustin. So it's also available on SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Radio Public, right, and Alexa Podcast if you have one on your house or on your home. So just play, just say play the podcast, the Design Live Show on Apple Podcasts. You know that already. So that's it. So and if you want to learn more, for anyone who are listening, you could go to thedesignliveshow.com. That's thedesignliveshow.com to learn more about, if you want to learn more about this, crazy mission, right? So giving more meaningful content, creating more meaningful content for the creative community, especially Filipino creative community. So check that out if you haven't already. Again, Dustin, man, thank you so much for dropping by on the podcast, and
Hey man,
I
no,
hope
thank
you
you.
enjoyed it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I mean, thank you so much for even invite. I didn't expect your invite, to be honest. So like I'm seeing this
Bakit?
podcast from from afar, and then I was like, oh, that would be nice to be there. But hey, I'm here right now, so thank you
Man.
so much.
So yeah. Yeah, if you could, send me as well some recommendations that I could, invite here on the podcast, right? Or,
Sure.
I'm very open to collaborate. So yeah, thank you so much again, Dustin.
Okay, thank you so much.
And that's it. So thank you so much, guys, for listening again to the podcast, and I really appreciate it. For those people who are asking me on how to support the podcast, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. So in that way, you can help me to reach more people and make the podcast more discoverable within the ecosystem. You can also take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with your friends, colleagues, or to anyone that might be interested in this kind of contents. You can also support the podcast monetarily by visiting jcristeves.com/donate or patreon.com/TDLS. And you can also shop courses and tools online to design the life you really deserve by visiting my shop at shop.jcristeves.com. And you can book a call today. I don't bite, just let me know, guys. So the last one would be also by listening and to all the podcast episode and previous episode. And however you support my message, however small that is, more than enough, and it means the world to me. So thank you so much, and see you again next time.